Good morning, everyone. How's everyone doing today on this Tuesday morning? It is time once again for PLAR History and Geography here at Wausau and Sulaco. This is week number 6 of this term, term 1B. We are 5 days away from Christmas. This is our last week of classes before the holiday break. Yes, I do understand that some learning centers in our communities are already closed. Some are still open, but a majority of them are closed right now for the break because they decided to close early, which is fine. I know that Fort Hope is still open for another week. They follow our schedule. So again, always take advantage, go out to your learning center, get some work done, continue to work on assignments, and submit them when you can. Remember, I'm here to help if you have any questions. Our teachers here at Wausau are still in office for the remainder of this week. So again, if you have any questions, you can always ask me. If you have any questions in regards to this course, PLAR History and Geography, or any of the other IL courses that I am marking at the moment, or just get in touch with your teacher with your particular course. Again, this is week number 6 of this term 1B. Again, feel free to listen and participate like always by calling the Wausau studio, probably at home since most of your learning center are closed at the moment, or you can always go back and review materials on the archive page since it's always there for you to check it out. Again, you can always get a hold of me at any point, anytime, phone call, email, Facebook. You know how to get a hold of me if you have any questions or comments. Again, this is our last week of class. We have today's class, then we have class on Thursday, and then we're done for 2 weeks. Again, I will be traveling to Big Trout and Mish after the holiday break. So again, super thrilled, super excited for that. So stay tuned for that as well. And that's it. That's all the announcement I have for today. So we're gonna get started with our class. Again, hopefully we'll have some students join us right now this morning live, but we are just going to continue where we left off from last class. So again, we started a brand new lesson last class. We looked at lesson number 4. We started a new subject. We looked at geography. History is now done. But again, I just want to emphasize, continue to work on your assignments, whether you need the history credit or the geography credit, or you need both. They need to complete both sections. Again, attempt all questions on your assignments. Do the best you can. Again, I'm here to help if you have any confusions or need any clarifications. But again, once all assignments are at least attempted and completed, that is when you can then write your tests, which is what really counts towards getting your credit for that particular subject. Okay, so again, any questions in regards to that, just let me know. Last class, we started looking at lesson 4, human geography, on page 28 in your textbook. So again, if you have that in front of you, feel free to turn to that page and follow along. We're going to do a quick review, and then we'll get to today's class learning goal and our success criteria, which pretty much just continues where we left off from last class. So again, last class we are learning about human geography. Again, we defined what it was, and then our success criteria was that we were able to explain the pros and cons of NAFTA. Again, the benefits and the consequences or the controversies of NAFTA. And then we list some examples of human rights, which we already looked at in terms of the Charter and Bill of Rights. So let's review what human geography is once again, so we have a good refresher. Human geography is the human political and cultural branch when looking at geography. It pretty much focuses on how humans adapt themselves to the land and other people in the environment. So again, people, us humans, how we relate to the land, and our environments. Again, lots of topics. Again, political, economic, urban, globalization, cultural, much, much more. But we focus on three subsections that branch off from human geography, and that is economics, which we talked about last class, which we will finish today. We will also be looking at urbanism, which will be defined today, and then we'll be looking at military geography, which we'll be looking at today as well. So economics, what is economic geography? Again, just some broad definition. Economic geography is the study of a wildly varying economic condition across the earth. It can be influenced by climate, geology, and social political factors. Again, depending on where we live in our community, or which community, certain place around the world, we all have different access to resources, agriculture, forestry, productivity, and so much more. The landform that we live on, again, it could be flat, it could be near a lake, it could just be absolutely nothing. Again, that impacts how we live our lives as well. And in terms of what we need for sustainable living, again, it goes back to materials, products, and sales. More developed countries such as Canada have better developed economics and trades with other countries around the world. Trade surplus, again, more definition. Trade surplus can be defined when a country with more goods to export to another country than goods to import. So again, when a country gives away more than we receive, okay? Or the amount by which the values of a country's export exceeds the cost of its import. So again, a good example of this would be Canada or any good developed country with good trades where we give away more than we actually receive. Next, we looked at NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement, came into play in 1994. We know it consists of Canada, United States, and Mexico. We know what NAFTA is. We talked about it in the history half, and we talked about it in great details. But again, basic agreement between these three countries where we can trade between without additional taxes on most items, or the removal of as many taxes as possible on goods. But again, there's always an argument, the good side and the bad side, the for, the against. Again, this relates to history, where historians always explore the good and the bad. So again, we need to take into account both sides of the situation. So NAFTA, the good, again, we can not pay as much taxes as possible on certain items. It protects property rights, trademarks, copyrights. Great for economic growth and increase the standard of living. However, the controversies of NAFTA, where some disagree with it, are much more. Canada and the United States oppose this, fear that jobs will be moved to Mexico because they can pay them cheaper. More American influence in the Canadian economy and industry. Farmers in Mexico oppose it because they have to pay a heavy agriculture subsidy. Detrimental non-economic impact on health, environment, poverty raised in Mexico, and more illegal immigrants are coming. Again, Chapter 11 is another clause in NAFTA. And then we looked at human rights. Again, human rights could be the right to freedom, the right to earn fair wages, the right to move around the country, freedom of speech, religion, and protection from danger. Again, not all countries and communities have human rights or protect human rights. Some human rights are violated. Here in Canada, we have human rights. It's protected under the Constitution and the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Again, we want to try to promote human rights around the world as much as we can. We want to trade with countries that promote human rights as well. So again, this is what most country goals are strive to achieve. Then we looked at assignment number 9. Again, just a lot of definition that needs to be defined. I won't go over these questions in details right now, but again, all we have to do is just attempt these questions, do our best as we can, show me that you're capable and ready for your tests. Again, full, complete sentences, details. That's what I'm looking for. Again, be standard across the board. So we're just going to continue where we left off from last class. We're still looking at human geography, which is our learning goals for today as well. So again, our learning goal is that we are learning about human geography. Yes, we touch on economics. We're going to finish economics, then look at urban, and then we're going to look at military geography. Success criteria, again, it's like your checklist. Hopefully it's what we're able to do at the end of today's class, is that I can classify certain jobs in industry sectors, I can define urban geography, and I can explain why Canada is a part of the Commonwealth. So again, our learning goal, same as always, and new success criteria for today's class. We're going to start things off by looking at types of industries. Types of industry. This is on page 33 in your textbook. We're going to be looking at 3 types of industries: the primary, the secondary, and the tertiary. On page 33 near the bottom, it defines each type and it provides some examples of each type as well. Again, make note of that. Note the definition of each one and some examples of jobs or industries that fall under these categories. So again, we're going to go through all 3 a little bit in depth. We're going to find them and give some examples. Primary, we're going to start off with that. Primary, again, this could be related to you or someone that you may have known, but primary industry is all about harvesting raw materials. It could be steel, wood, lumber, or natural resources. Again, it could be soil, minerals, animals, water, into primary products. Okay, pretty much we're starting from the very bottom where we're extracting or harvesting these raw materials or natural resources. Again, it varies from each country and community. And we start to turn them into primary products that everyone can use on an everyday basis. So, examples could be agriculture, fishing, forestry, mining, and probably much more as well. So again, Silico is definitely popular for fishing. I know a lot of people up here love fishing. I went out fishing a couple times in the fall and it's actually pretty fun. I enjoy it. Again, after that, fishing. Okay, we take that piece of fish and then we need to start to turn it into actual primary products that we can use or that we can eat. Okay, if we just fish like tons and tons of fish, we need to do something with those fish. Again, agriculture, forestry, again, we chop down a tree, but that's no good. We just have a giant piece of tree. We need to take that tree and start to turn it into other products, such as a table, a desk, paper, firewood, other items that we can use every day. Okay, so hopefully you can see that, you can make that connection, see how it starts to relate. Again, but we're starting to extract all these raw materials or these natural resources, and then we start to turn them into primary products. Which leads into the next category, which is secondary, where we take that product that we just harvest and we start to produce them into manufactured goods from the primary industry. So to return these goods so that these goods can be used by everyday consumers, everyday people like you and I. Often happens in large factories. Again, where we take that giant piece of tree, we toss it in a factory or somewhere, we chop it up or we do what we need to do with it, and then we start to turn it into actual products as well. So again, a lot of manufacturers, plants, processing food, building, construction, that is what secondary is defined as. And finally, now we have that piece of items, we need to do something with it. We then return it to the tertiary industry, which is known as the service industry. Okay, so any jobs that relate to service, front desk, communication, helping others, service, all deals with tertiary. Again, provide service needed by the primary and secondary. Most of us are employed in this category, most jobs in heavy, dense, populated areas. But again, any jobs that you can think of that relates to service. Uber driver, taxi driver, transportation, flying a plane, bank, where you need cash, communication, any job to do with communication, entertainment, because it provides a service, teaching, that's what we do here at WASO. So myself and other teachers and colleagues, we teach, we provide a service, education, knowledge, thinking, police, foundation and protection, hospital nurses, taking care of the sick, weak, elders. Again, any job that relates to service. So again, think back, reflect. I know a lot of us are parents. A lot of us are working in our communities, but think back in terms of what do you do in your community? Do you provide a service? Do you extract raw materials? Do you extract natural resources? Do you work in a factory plant? What category do you fall under? Or your family member fall under? Or your siblings or your friends fall under? Think about it. Hopefully you can see that connection. Everything comes from somewhere, which starts from the primary, then it leads to the secondary, then it leads to the tertiary. So hopefully all three industry sectors link to one another. Hopefully you can see that connection as well. So again, I gave the example as us teacher here at WASA, we fall under the tertiary industry as we are teachers. We provide a service of education. So again, hopefully you can see that connection. Moving along to the next subsection where we're looking at urban geography. Again, this is the second subsection that we branch off from human geography. Okay, this starts on the next page or two, which is on page 35. Okay, 35 in your textbook. As always, and then we will continue. We'll just define a lot of definitions as we do in geography. Urban geography. Again, page 35, you want to make that reference. Again, a lot of these terms and definitions and examples, you can simply just Google it or read in other books and articles for additional research or inquiry skills. But again, these are just some broad definitions where we're just touching on the surface. We can always go more in depth if we wanted to, but again, we need to cover all these topics. But again, if anything that interests the class of students, let me know. We can always dive into greater details about each of these definitions and give more examples as well. So what is urban geography? Any guesses? Okay, so urban. I think we know what urban is. Urban is pretty much city, populated area is what we'll be looking at right now. So urban geography is simply the study where we analyze, examine, interpret the study of urban settlements. So big major cities, okay, how they develop, how city develops. I also included towns and communities because again, we're not just talking about big cities, but it can also relate to small towns and communities as well. So again, us here in Sulago in pretty much the middle of nowhere in northwestern Ontario. It's cold, we're isolated. We don't have a major city close by. We could say Dryden is close by, which is just down the road, down from the highway. But the next major city could be Thunder Bay or Winnipeg. Okay, so when we talk about urban areas, Thunder Bay and Winnipeg. We can also talk about Montreal, Toronto, Ottawa, all those major cities in Southern Ontario. But relating it back into Northwest Ontario, the two, I would say, urban cities are Thunder Bay and Winnipeg. We also have a lot more smaller towns and cities and communities. We got Fort Francis, we got Kenora, we got all the communities up north that we serve. Again, I'm not going to leave anyone out as well. But urban geography is pretty much how we look at each community grow over time, how they develop, what has changed, what has continued. We looked at the population. Is it increasing? Is it decreasing? What are the factors? What are the reasons? Okay. Certain patterns and trends within that community and cities. Again, I haven't been living in Sligo for that long. This has just been my second year living in town. So again, I'm starting to get a sense of what's happening in town, how things are done. But again, I'm still learning. But I can definitely talk about my hometown of Brampton, where back in the day, it was considered a town. Then it had so much people, then it became a city. And now it's one of the major cities in Canada with a population of just over 500,000. Again, we have Mississauga down the highway. Again, Mississauga is just over a million. Toronto is about 3 million if we take into account Scarborough, Etobicoke, North York. Again, how it changed over time. Again, there are always problems when looking at urban geography, different problems, whether it's good or bad, policies made by our mayor and government, and the quality of life. You can take that into account as well, where some communities and towns have more access to resource than others. So again, for example, here in Silico, I mentioned that we're in the middle of nowhere in northwestern Ontario, pretty isolated. If you want to travel to a bigger community, we have to drive or fly a great distance to get there. So again, we don't have a major mall. We don't have lots of entertainments here in town in Silico. If we want all that, we have to reach out and get to where we want. So again, it could pose a challenge for some, maybe not so much for others, depending on what you want and need for your lifestyle. But again, urban geography, how a city grows and settles, its population, the patterns, again, all that is taken into account as well. Again, I would love to do a little history of Silicote and different communities, how it has changed over time. But if we had time in a classroom, we can always do that on a bigger project as well. Ecological footprints. It's touched in your textbook, so I'm going to talk about it just very, very briefly. Ecological footprint is the amount of productivity land required to support lifestyle of individual, a country, or a business. Pretty much an individual. So in other words, how much space of land that you require to support your happiness and your lifestyle. Okay. On my next slide, it talks more about it, but laying that back into urban geography, urban area grows which increased in prices in terms of supply and demand. Not so much here in Silicon, but I know that in Toronto, lots of condo, lots of buildings, lots of homes are always jumping in prices. So again, if people want to live in a big urban area, again, it's going to cost a lot much more. With that being said, it also leads to more problems. Again, pollution, garbage, waste, people, okay, people on the streets, people walking on the streets, traffic, okay. Here in Silicon, we don't have a single set of traffic lights, so we don't really have any traffic. But in Southern Ontario, there's lots of traffic, especially when commuters are traveling during rush hours. Lots of traffic. Again, that could be a problem in that particular city or in that particular area. Expansion, again, big cities always want to grow. Some communities want to grow, but we are limited in terms of space. I heard that Silicon is not really expanding because we don't have much space or area that we can expand to, from what I heard. Uh, if we can, it leads to factors such as loss of farmland, loss of trees, loss of forestry, loss of other factors such as animals, homes, and habitats. Again, all those equations, costs, comes into play. Again, pros and cons to always both sides. Calculating ecological footprint. Well, you can simply just Google it. There's so many websites out there right now where you can just where they simply ask you a survey question. You just click yes or no, or agree or disagree, and it simply just calculates how much space you require to live on land. So again, it varies from each person. It could be, oh, I live in a big house, I live in a small house, I need a lot of access to roads, I only eat vegetables, I'm a vegan, or I will eat a lot of meat products. Again, that takes into account. Transportation, do you walk? I walk to work sometimes. Do you drive? If you do drive, it leads to more pollution, gas. Okay, a bigger house may have more heating or cooling, which spikes your energy bill a lot. Again, if you don't eat meat, boom, you can eliminate that category because you don't need much animal product. Okay, so again, all these things are taken into account. Okay, don't know what the average is, but again, it really varies in terms of what resources and what we need to support our lives. Again, just something that I'd like to share as well. Quality of life, page 35 at the bottom, more definition. Quality of life in society, pretty standard here. Quality of life in society pretty much is defined as being happy, being healthy, and being prosperous. Again, all those core values that we want for our families, friends, and others. Simply just be happy, just live the moment, enjoy what you have right now. Can't worry too much about the future. It just leads to more stress and worriness. But again, good fortune, prosperous, just being happy. A healthy lifestyle reflects longer life, a longer life expectancy. That is true to some extent. There's research done about it. But if we're happy, if we're healthy and strong, we should live longer. So again, exercising, walking, doing a simple daily activity, anything that we do, going to the gym, working out, playing sports, again, leads to less stress and healthier lifestyle. Again, all that improves the quality of life and live longer. Here in Canada, we have a much higher life expectancy compared to other countries. Here in Canada, most of us live up until the age of 65 or more, or at least 70. Well, I shouldn't even say 65. It should be much higher. It should be in at least 70s. But again, it varies from each country and communities. Again, it all goes back into what we have in our resource. Here in Silica, we have a hospital, we have doctors, we have clinics. So if we're sick and ill, we can go there and they should help you out, give you medication. Some countries around the world, the less developed countries, don't have that access. Again, a flu shot, you can simply get one in town. Some other countries don't have that. Clean water is another issue. Again, that leads to quality of life. Yes, I have heard that some communities up north don't necessarily have clean water all the time. They have to boil it or use bottled water. Again, that impacts how we live our life. Whether we're happy, sad, again, that all plays into account as well. So again, many factors come into play for quality of life. Living in Canada, like I mentioned, we are a slow growing population. Yes, we are taking immigrants right now into our country to expand and grow, but we're not growing at a high rate. We're slowly growing, but not really growing a lot. Again, I still believe our population here in Canada is around 35, 36 million. In terms of indigenous First Nation population, I think it's 1 million or so of that particular group out there. Again, many factors come into play. Canada's cold. Yes, that's another factor. It kind of push others away. We have fewer children being born. We're not in the baby boom period anymore. People do live longer, higher quality of life. Again, most of us live to the age of 65 or plus, should be much higher. But again, it really, really varies. We have good education, schooling here in Canada, free education, well, until you go to university or college, but most education are for free. Take advantage of it, learn, learn how we relate ourselves to the world from a critical disposition standpoint, how we develop our thinking skills, how we improve our numeracy and literacy skills, how we better articulate reading and writing. Again, school and education, very important. Healthcare, again, here in Canada, we have free healthcare. Again, something that we can really take for granted and utilize. Again, like I said, here in Silica, we have a hospital with doctors and nurses in different sections. Again, very, very important in terms of here in Canada. Not just here in Silica, but again, most areas around Canada have this in terms of education and healthcare. Again, service needs that we have in our country. Next section, military geography. This is the last section in human geography, military geography. So let's define what military geography is all about. Again, just note the key concept, the purpose, and its goal, how it's significant, how it contributes to others. So military geography is a specialized field, deals with natural and man-made physical features that may affect planning the conduct of military operation. Again, not necessarily going to war or causing war or chaos, but it's a specialized field and how it deals with military geography. For example, the UN, the United Nations, falls under military geography because it promotes peace, security, and economic development. Okay, all about planning the future ahead of time so that if something does happen, we are prepared for it. Security Council, again, it's a division within the UN. Countries such as Canada, US, Britain, China, France, Russia are part of the UN and the Security Council. They are often called into session to respond quickly to international crisis. Canada's role within the UN Security Council is that we protect civilians during war, disaster, natural disaster. We supply medicine, food, clothing, shelter, basic needs and necessity for those others who are less fortunate. Hence why donations are very significant. Christmas hampers, which is what we did this year at WASA, where we collected donation and we shipped up some Christmas hamper for those who are less fortunate or those who can use some cheering in our communities. Simply to helping those in poverty and to promote and protect human rights. Again, same concept as always. On the next page, it talks about the Commonwealth of Nations. What are those? Commonwealth of Nations or Commonwealth? They are independent sovereign state or a former territory of the British Empire. Or in other words, they were once controlled by Britain, but now gain their own independence. Okay, so any country or territory back in the day where they used to be controlled by Britain or colonized, but have now gained their own independence, all these countries and nations formed the Commonwealth. They still maintain ties with each other in Britain. We all recognize Queen Elizabeth II as the head of state, but she has no political powers. She is just pretty much simply a symbol of unity. Commonwealth of Nations promote diverse economic background. We protect democracy, human rights, and good governance. We also promote friendship and partnership with one another. It's pretty much a little group, a little groupie, a little organization where we collaborate with one another because we have this same common concept where we were once controlled by Britain but have now gained our own independence. There was a picture or a little map in your textbook on page 37 that outlines countries who are a part of the Commonwealth. And I also have this map on my screen as well. Again, any nation, area, territory that are highlighted in dark blue were once colonized by Britain or had control from Britain or influence from Britain, but we have now gained our own independence. Again, obviously us, Canada, some parts of South America or Africa, sorry, not South America, but Africa, South Africa, India, that little area, Australia, and some of those little islands around that area as well. Again, not a huge area, not a lot of countries. I think there are about 16 of us where we all have the same goals that we want to promote, and we fall under the Commonwealth of Nations. But again, what we need to emphasize and need to remember is that how we become or who can become a part of the Commonwealth. Yes, there are some agreements as well. But again, it needs to be that we were once controlled by Britain, but now gain our own independence. And now we promote these values such as democracy, human rights, and good governance. Also in your textbook, there are a list of countries who do not qualify or who do not belong in the Commonwealth, but should, because they promote the same values such as democracy and good governance and good economy. Again, you can find that list in your textbook, but again, it could be Egypt, Jordan, United States, Iraq, Kuwait, Hong Kong, France. Again, none of these countries that I have just listed or some that are in your textbook, they have not been colonized by Britain. Therefore, they are not necessarily part of the Commonwealth, but they could be. An argument could be because they now promote democracy and promote the same values as us, Canada, and other countries around the world. All right, so that pretty much wraps up lesson number 4, human geography. So we're gonna get to our next assignment very quickly, and then we'll call it a day. Again, assignment 10 in your workbook. Question 1, what is primary industry? Give examples. So again, define it and provide examples. Again, secondary industry, same thing. Define it, what it is. We talked about it in class. It's in your textbook. And give examples. Question 3, tertiary industry. Give examples. Next question, question 4. What is urban geography? Again, summarize it up. Define what it is in your own words. Question 5. What is called a life in society? 6. What is military geography? Yes, as you can see, there's a lot. Definition. 7. What is Canada's role in the UN Security Council? And question 8 deals with the Commonwealth of Countries, the Commonwealth of Nations. Who is entitled to be a member? Why is Canada a part of this organization? And name 4 countries that do not belong, even though they can apply for membership. Again, simple, straightforward questions. Any confusion questions, you know how to get a hold of me. I'm always here to help. Next class on Thursday, our last and final class before the holiday break. Again, I know most Learning Center are closed, but again, take that initiative, take that responsibility, and still work on your assignments while you can. I didn't want to start lesson 5 until after the break, but since we are a bit ahead by 1 class, maybe we will start physical geography lesson 5 next class. There is a little short lesson in terms of what is physical geography. Perhaps we can do a little review. Maybe I'll plug in a little music break next class. We'll see how things go, but looks like we're ahead by 1 class in terms of our schedule and plan. We'll start lesson 5, physical geography, next class, and go from there, our last class before the holiday break. So that is the plan for next class. Again, there is 5 more days until Christmas. We're almost there. Holidays is just around the corner. It's basically here. Here at Wausau, our teachers and staff, we're just in office for this week, and then we're off for 2 weeks. But again, continue to work hard. If you have any questions, we're still here in office for the remainder of the week. Are there any questions? Well, thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in, listening. Again, if you have missed